"Barbara, you need to see this. Your brother just sold your property." Those words from my lawyer hit me like a bucket of cold water on a Wednesday morning in Berlin. I was sitting in my small apartment, coffee halfway to my lips, trying to process what Douglas had just said over the phone. My name is Barbara, and I'm 27 years old. For the past 3 years, I've been working as a graphic designer for a marketing agency in Germany. I left Tampa right after college, chasing a dream of living abroad and experiencing something different from the life I'd always known. My parents had supported the move, even though my older brother Tyler made it clear he thought I was being irresponsible. He was 32, married with 2 kids, and had always positioned himself as the responsible one in the family. "What property?" I asked Douglas, setting my coffee down. My hand was shaking slightly. "Your grandmother's condo in Tampa. The one she left you in her will." I felt my stomach drop. Grandma Eleanor had passed away 6 months ago, and I'd flown back for the funeral. It had been devastating. She was the one person in my family who truly understood my need to explore the world, who encouraged me to take risks. But I had no idea she'd left me anything. "I didn't know about any condo," I said slowly. "Nobody told me." There was a pause on the other end. "Barbara, you were named as the sole beneficiary of that property in her will. It was a 2-bedroom condo in downtown Tampa, worth approximately $350,000. Your brother sold it last week for $320,000. My mind was racing. $350,000. That was life-changing money. That was enough to pay off my student loans, maybe even buy a small place of my own someday. And Tyler had just sold it? How is that even possible? I demanded. If it was left to me, how could he sell it? "That's what I'm trying to figure out," Douglas said. His voice was careful, measured. "I received the probate documents yesterday, and something doesn't add up. I'm looking into it now. But Barbara, I need you to not contact your brother yet. Let me investigate first." I agreed, though every fiber of my being wanted to call Tyler immediately and demand answers. Instead, I sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what was happening. Grandma Eleanor had always been special to me. While my parents were busy with their restaurant business and Tyler was focused on climbing the corporate ladder at some insurance company, Grandma was the one who sat with me for hours, looking at travel magazines and talking about all the places I wanted to see. She'd traveled extensively in her youth, before she married my grandfather and settled down in Florida. When I told my family I was moving to Germany, Tyler had been the loudest critic. "You're throwing away your future," he'd said at a family dinner. "What kind of career can you build over there? You're being selfish, leaving Mom and Dad to handle everything here." My parents had been more supportive, though I could tell they wished I'd stay closer. But Grandma Eleanor had pulled me aside before I left and squeezed my hand. "Go," she'd whispered. "See the world while you're young. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting more." Now, sitting in Berlin with the gray morning light filtering through my windows, I realized I'd never get to thank her properly. And somehow, Tyler had taken away the gift she'd tried to leave me. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my mom. "Tyler said he finally got Grandma's condo sold. Such a relief to have that handled. Hope you're doing well in Germany, sweetie." I stared at the message, anger building in my chest. My mom didn't know. She thought the condo had belonged to Tyler, that he was handling family business. She had no idea what Grandma had actually wanted. I typed back a neutral response, my fingers tight on the phone. "Glad it worked out. Talk soon." Then I called Douglas back. "I need to know everything," I said. "How did this happen?" "I'm working on it," he assured me. "I've requested copies of all the sale documents. If your brother forged anything or misrepresented ownership, we'll find out. Just give me a few days." Those few days felt like an eternity. I went through the motions at work, designing promotional materials for a hotel chain, but my mind was thousands of miles away in Tampa. I kept thinking about Grandma Eleanor, about the last time I'd seen her before she got sick. She'd seemed frail but happy, telling me stories about her trip to Morocco in the 1960s. "You remind me of who I used to be," she'd said, patting my hand. "Promise me you'll keep exploring, Barbara. Don't let life make you small." I'd promised, and now I was learning she'd tried to give me the means to keep that promise. Growing up, Tyler and I had never been particularly close. The 5-year age gap meant we were in different stages of life, and our personalities couldn't have been more different. He was calculated, ambitious, and obsessed with appearances. I was creative, spontaneous, and more interested in experiences than material success. Our relationship had deteriorated further after I moved to Germany. Tyler made comments at every family video call about how I was wasting my potential, or running away from real life. My parents tried to keep the peace, but I could tell they were caught in the middle. Tyler had a way of positioning himself as the dutiful son, the one who stayed close to home and took care of family obligations. When Grandma Eleanor got sick, I'd flown back immediately. Tyler had seemed annoyed by my presence, as if I was intruding on his territory. He'd appointed himself as her primary caretaker, managing her medical decisions and finances. At the time, I'd been grateful. I was dealing with my own grief and jet lag, and it seemed easier to let him handle the practical matters. Now I wondered what else he'd been handling behind the scenes. I spent those waiting days remembering Grandma Eleanor more clearly. She'd been widowed for 15 years, living alone in that condo she'd bought after Grandpa died. It was her pride and joy, a place she'd chosen for herself after decades of living in the house my grandfather had picked. She used to joke that it was her independence headquarters. The condo had a balcony overlooking the Tampa waterfront, and she'd filled it with plants and comfortable chairs. I'd visited her there during college breaks, and we'd spend hours on that balcony, drinking tea and talking about everything from politics to poetry. She was the only person in my family who never made me feel strange for wanting something different. Douglas called me on Friday evening, his voice tight with what sounded like barely controlled anger. "Barbara, I've reviewed all the documents. Your brother committed fraud." I sat down heavily on my couch. "Tell me everything." "Your grandmother's will was very clear. The condo was left to you, with a letter explaining that she wanted you to have financial security as you built your life abroad. Your brother had access to the will as the executor of the estate, but he had no legal claim to the property itself. So how did he sell it?" "He forged documents," Douglas said bluntly. "He created paperwork that made it appear the condo had been left to him instead. He presented these documents to the real estate agent and the buyers. The sale went through because nobody had reason to question the legitimacy of his claim." My hands were shaking. "That's illegal. Very illegal. It's fraud, forgery, and theft. The good news is that the sale can be reversed. The bad news is that this is going to get messy. Your brother has already spent some of the money." "How do you know?" "Because I did some digging. He put a down payment on a new house last week, a rather expensive one in a gated community. I'm guessing he was planning to use the condo money to upgrade his lifestyle." I felt sick. While I'd been working my regular job in Berlin, carefully budgeting every euro, Tyler had been stealing my inheritance to buy a bigger house for his family. "What do I do?" I asked. "First, I'm filing a legal complaint with the court in Tampa. This will freeze any remaining funds from the sale and begin the process of unwinding the transaction. Second, I need you to gather any documentation you have of your relationship with your grandmother, any emails or letters that might show her intentions. Third, and this is important, you need to be prepared for this to damage your family relationships. Your brother is going to fight this." "Let him fight," I said, surprised by the steel in my own voice. "He stole from me. He committed fraud." "I know, and we're going to prove it. But Barbara, your parents are going to be caught in the middle of this. You need to be ready for that." I thought about my mom's cheerful text, about how relieved she was that Tyler had handled the condo situation. She had no idea what he'd actually done. When the truth came out, It was going to devastate her. But I couldn't let Tyler get away with this. Not just because of the money, though that was significant, but because Grandma Eleanor had wanted me to have that condo. She'd made her wishes clear in her will, and Tyler had decided his wants were more important than her final gift to me. That weekend, I went through my emails and found dozens of messages from Grandma Eleanor. She'd learned to use email in her 70s, and we'd corresponded regularly during my time in Germany. I read through them now with tears in my eyes. In one email from 2 years ago, she'd written, "I'm so proud of you for following your dreams, Barbara. Your grandfather always said I gave up too much when we got married, that I should have kept traveling. I don't regret my life, but I want you to know that it's okay to want more. Don't let anyone tell you that ambition is unfeminine, or that wanting to see the world makes you selfish. You're the bravest person I know." In another, from just 8 months before she died, "I've been thinking about my will lately. I want you to know that I'm making sure you'll have security, no matter what. You're building a beautiful life in Germany, and I want to support that. Don't worry about the details now, but know that I'm taking care of you." I forwarded these emails to Douglas, along with photos from our visits and a birthday card she'd sent me that mentioned how proud she was of my independence. On Monday morning, Douglas called with an update. "I've filed the legal complaint. The court has frozen the funds from the sale, which means your brother can't access the remaining money. He's been notified of the legal action. Has he tried to contact you?" "Not yet, but I expect he will. Barbara, this is going to move quickly now. Be prepared for him to reach out to you directly." I wasn't prepared at all, actually, because what happened next was something I never could have anticipated. Tuesday morning in Berlin, which was Monday night in Tampa, my phone rang at 2 a.m. I'd been in a dead sleep, dreaming about Grandma Eleanor's balcony, and the jarring ringtone jolted me awake. It was Tyler. I stared at the screen for a moment, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail, but I knew I had to face this eventually. I answered. "Barbara, finally." Tyler's voice was jovial, almost manic. "I've been trying to reach you. Listen, I have amazing news." I sat up in bed, turning on the lamp. "What news?" "I sold Grandma's condo. Got a great price for it, too. And here's the best part. I'm going to give you $10,000 from the sale. You know, since you flew back for the funeral and everything. I figured you could use a little boost over there in Germany." I was speechless. He was actually bragging about it. He was calling me in the middle of the night to brag about stealing my inheritance, and then offering me a tiny fraction of it like he was doing me some enormous favor. 10,000, I managed to say. "I know, right? Pretty generous, considering I'm the one who handled all the estate stuff. I mean, you've been off in Europe this whole time, and somebody had to deal with the probate and the realtor and all of that. It's been a huge headache. But family takes care of family, you know." My hands were gripping the phone so tightly I thought I might crack the screen. "Tyler, when exactly did you sell the condo?" "Closed on it last week." "Why?" "And you're just telling me now?" He laughed. "Well, yeah. I wanted to make sure everything was finalized before I got everyone excited. You know how real estate deals can fall through at the last minute. But it's all done now. The money's in my account, and I'm ready to write you that check." "Your account," I repeated slowly. "Well, yeah. I was the executor of the estate. It all had to go through me. But don't worry. I'm sharing the wealth. $10,000, Barbara. That's enough for a nice vacation or whatever you want to spend it on." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Tyler, I need to ask you something. Did Grandma leave a will?" There was a pause. "Of course she did. Why?" "And what did it say about the condo?" Another pause, longer this time. "It left the estate to be divided among the family. Standard stuff." "Why are you asking all these questions? You don't trust me or something?" "I'm just curious about the details." "Well, you should have been curious earlier. Like when you decided to move halfway around the world instead of staying here to help with family obligations. I'm the one who's been dealing with all of this. I'm the one who sat with Grandma when she was dying. I'm the one who handled the funeral arrangements and the probate court and selling the condo. You flew in for 3 days and then went right back to your little adventure in Germany. His words stung, even though I knew they were manipulative. Yes, I'd been living abroad. But I'd talked to Grandma Eleanor every week. I'd been there for her in my own way, and she'd known that. She'd supported my choices. I'm grateful you handled those things, I said carefully. But I want to make sure I understand the will correctly. Who did it say the condo should go to? Barbara, it's 2 a.m. there, right? You sound tired. Why don't we talk about this later? I'll have Mom send you my bank details so you can receive the transfer. Okay? Tyler, I've gotta go. Kids have early swim practice tomorrow. Talk soon, little sis. He hung up before I could say anything else. I sat in my dark apartment, phone still in my hand, feeling a strange mixture of rage and something almost like pity. Tyler genuinely seemed to think he'd done nothing wrong, or maybe he knew exactly what he'd done, and was hoping I'd be too grateful for the $10,000 to ask questions. Either way, he'd just made a crucial mistake. He'd called me to brag about the sale, which meant he had no idea that Douglas had already filed the legal complaint. He didn't know that the funds were frozen, or that the court was investigating the forged documents. He thought he'd gotten away with it. I called Douglas immediately, despite the early hour. He answered on the second ring, sounding wide awake. He just called me, I said without preamble. Tyler just called to tell me about the sale. He offered me $10,000, like he was doing me a favor. Douglas was quiet for a moment. Did he say anything about the will or the ownership? He lied. He said the estate was supposed to be divided among the family. He made it sound like he was being generous by giving me anything at all. That's good, Douglas said. Good? It establishes that he's knowingly misrepresenting the terms of the will. Record any future conversations you have with him if you can. Everything he says could be useful in court. I felt a small surge of satisfaction. So what happens now? Now he's going to find out that the funds are frozen. His bank will notify him, probably sometime today, and then he's going to realize that someone has challenged the sale. My guess is he'll figure out it was you pretty quickly. And then what? Then things are going to get very unpleasant. Your brother is going to panic. He's going to try to spin a narrative to your family to make you look like the villain. He's going to claim this is all a misunderstanding or that you're being greedy. Be prepared for that. I thought about my parents, about how this was going to tear our family apart. But I also thought about Grandma Eleanor, about her final wish being ignored and violated by her own grandson. I'm prepared, I said. Let him try to spin whatever story he wants. We have the truth on our side. That's my girl, Douglas said approvingly. Now try to get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. But I didn't sleep. I lay awake until dawn, watching the sky lighten over Berlin, thinking about Grandma Eleanor's balcony in Tampa, and wondering what she would say if she could see what was happening now. I had a feeling she'd tell me to fight, and that's exactly what I was going to do. The call came 36 hours later. I was at work, sitting in a conference room with my team, reviewing designs for a new restaurant chain campaign, when my phone started buzzing insistently in my pocket. I glanced at the screen. Tyler. Then my mom. Then Tyler again. Then a number I didn't recognize from Florida. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, my stomach churning. This was it. He'd found out. I answered Tyler's call. Hello? What the hell did you do? His voice was shaking with rage. What the hell did you do, Barbara? I don't know what you're talking about, I said calmly, though my heart was hammering. Don't play stupid with me. The bank froze the money from the condo sale. They said there's a legal complaint filed against me. Did you do this? Tyler, I think we need to talk about Grandma's will. There's nothing to talk about. That condo was part of the estate, and I handled the estate. You have no right to interfere with this. No right. The condo was left to me, I said quietly. Grandma's will specifically left it to me. Not to you. Not to the estate. To me. There was a long silence. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, become calculating. That's not true. I saw the will. I was the executor. It was left to the family. No, Tyler. It was left to me. And you know it was. Because you're the one who forged the documents to make it look like it was yours. I didn't forge anything. This is insane. You've been gone for 3 years, and now you suddenly show up making accusations? You have no idea what you're talking about. I have a lawyer, Tyler. He's seen the real will. He's seen the documents you filed with the real estate sale. They don't match. You committed fraud. I heard him breathing heavily on the other end. You're out of your mind. Mom and Dad are going to hear about this. They're going to know what you're doing, trying to steal from your own family. I'm not stealing anything. I'm taking back what Grandma wanted me to have. She wanted you to have it? He laughed bitterly. You were her little favorite, weren't you? Always running off to have your adventures while the rest of us actually took care of responsibilities. You think she really wanted to reward that? His words hit a nerve, but I pushed through. What Grandma wanted is in her will, Tyler. Legal documents don't lie. But apparently you do. You're making a huge mistake, he said, his voice dropping to something darker. You don't know what you're starting here. You think you can just waltz in from Germany and destroy this family? Mom and Dad are going to be devastated. Your niece and nephew are going to grow up knowing their aunt tore the family apart over money. Is that what you want? I want what Grandma wanted, I said. That's all I've ever wanted. He hung up without another word. I stood in the hallway of my office building, my hands shaking. My coworker Jana poked her head out of the conference room. Everything okay? Family stuff, I managed to say. I'll be right back. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. This was really happening. I'd just accused my brother of fraud to his face. There was no going back now. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom, and I knew I couldn't avoid this conversation. I answered. Barbara, honey, what's going on? My mom's voice was confused, worried. Tyler just called me very upset. He said you're suing him? I'm not suing him, Mom. I'm filing a complaint about the sale of Grandma's condo. But why? Tyler handled all of that. He did such a good job with everything, all the estate matters. I don't understand why you're making problems now. I closed my eyes. Mom, did Tyler show you Grandma's will? Well, no, not directly. He explained it to us. He said everything was left to the family, and he was managing it as executor. That's normal, isn't it? Did you know that Grandma left her condo specifically to me? There was a pause. What do you mean, specifically to you? Her will stated that the condo was to go to me, just me, not to Tyler, not to be split up among the family. She left it to me, and she wrote a letter explaining why. That can't be right, my mom said slowly. Tyler told us he was selling the condo to settle the estate. He said you'd get a share of everything. He offered me $10,000, Mom. The condo sold for $320,000. Another long pause. There must be some confusion. Let me talk to Tyler about this. I'm sure there's an explanation. Mom, I have a lawyer who's reviewed all the documents. Tyler forged paperwork to make it look like the condo was his to sell. That's fraud. Barbara, that's a very serious accusation. Tyler would never do something like that. He's your brother. He's been nothing but responsible and helpful through this whole awful time with Grandma's death. I think maybe you're misunderstanding the legal process. Estate law is very complicated. I felt something crack inside me. Even now, even with evidence, my mother was taking Tyler's side. Mom, I'm not misunderstanding anything. Grandma wanted me to have that condo. Tyler knew that, and he decided to take it for himself. I think you need to think very carefully about what you're doing, my mom said, her voice getting firmer. You're accusing your own brother of a crime. Do you realize how that's going to affect this family? Your father is already upset. Tyler's wife is crying. The kids don't understand what's happening. And for what? Money. It's not about money, Mom. It's about respecting Grandma's wishes. Grandma would be heartbroken to see her grandchildren fighting like this. She loved both of you. Yes, she did. And she left me that condo because she wanted to support my life in Germany. She told me so, in emails. I have proof. I need to go, my mom said abruptly. Your father and I need to talk about this. But Barbara, I hope you'll reconsider what you're doing. Family is more important than property. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My face was flushed, my eyes bright with unshed tears. This was what Douglas had warned me about. Tyler was already spinning his narrative, painting me as the greedy sister who'd abandoned the family and was now swooping in to steal from them. But I couldn't back down. Not when I knew the truth. Over the next week, things escalated in ways I hadn't anticipated. Tyler hired his own lawyer, who sent Douglas a letter claiming that I was harassing Tyler and making false accusations. The letter stated that Tyler had acted entirely within his rights as executor, and that any confusion about the will was due to my distance from the family and lack of understanding about estate law. Douglas sent me a copy of the letter with a brief note. Standard intimidation tactics. Don't worry. We have the documentation to prove everything. But it was hard not to worry when my phone was constantly buzzing with messages from family members. My Aunt Patricia called to say she was disappointed in me for attacking Tyler during such a difficult time. My cousin Jennifer sent a long text about how Tyler had always been there for the family and how I should be ashamed of myself. Even my dad, who usually stayed out of family drama, left me a voicemail asking me to reconsider this legal action for the sake of family harmony. The only person who didn't contact me was Tyler himself. That silence felt ominous. At work, I was distracted and exhausted. The time difference meant I was getting calls from Florida late at night, and I wasn't sleeping well. My boss, Stefan, pulled me aside one afternoon and asked if everything was all right. Family issues, I said vaguely. Nothing I can't handle. If you need time off, you can take it, he offered. You've been with us for 3 years and never taken a real vacation. I thanked him but declined. Work was the only thing keeping me sane, the only place where I could focus on something other than the chaos in Tampa. Douglas called me on Thursday evening with an update. The court has scheduled a hearing for 2 weeks from now. Both parties will present their evidence, and the judge will make a preliminary ruling on whether the sale should be reversed. Do I need to be there? It would help, yes. Can you fly back to Tampa? I thought about my job, my apartment, my life in Berlin. Flying back to the States for a court hearing felt surreal, like I was being pulled back into a world I'd tried to leave behind. But this was about Grandma Eleanor. This was about justice. I'll be there, I said. That weekend, I bought a plane ticket for the following Thursday. I'd stay with a college friend who lived in Tampa, avoiding my parents' house entirely. I wasn't ready to face them in person, not when they were still taking Tyler's side. On Monday, something unexpected happened. I received an email from someone named Patricia Williams, the woman who'd bought Grandma's condo from Tyler. The subject line read, "Questions about the property purchase." I opened it with trembling hands. Dear Miss Barbara, my husband and I purchased a condominium from your brother Tyler 2 weeks ago. We have recently been informed by our attorney that there may be legal issues with the sale. We are very concerned about this situation, as we sold our previous home to purchase this property and have already moved in with our children. We were under the impression that your brother was the rightful owner of the condominium. He presented all the necessary documentation. and our attorney reviewed everything before we proceeded with the purchase. We had no reason to believe anything was improper. Could you please contact me to discuss this situation? We are innocent parties in whatever dispute exists between you and your brother, and we are now facing the possibility of losing our home. Sincerely, Patricia Williams. I felt a wave of guilt and sympathy. These people had been caught in the middle of Tyler's fraud. They'd bought the condo in good faith, believing Tyler had the right to sell it. Now their lives were being turned upside down because of his lies. I forwarded the email to Douglas immediately. He called me within the hour. "This is actually good for our case," he said. "It shows that Tyler deceived not just you, but also the buyers. They're going to be witnesses to his misrepresentation. But what happens to them? Do they lose the condo?" "The sale will be voided, yes. They'll get their money back from the escrowed funds. They won't lose anything financially, though they will need to find another place to live. It's unfortunate, but they're victims of Tyler's fraud just like you are." I wrote back to Patricia, expressing my sympathy and explaining that I hadn't known about the sale until after it happened. I offered to connect her with Douglas so she could understand her legal options. She responded gratefully, saying she appreciated my kindness during what was clearly a difficult situation for everyone. The contrast between Patricia's gracious response and my own family's hostility was striking. Strangers were treating me with more respect than my own brother and parents. On Tuesday, I received a Facebook message from Tyler's wife, Jennifer. I'd always gotten along reasonably well with Jennifer, though we'd never been particularly close. Her message surprised me. "Barbara, I need to talk to you privately. Can we video chat sometime when Tyler isn't around?" I agreed, and we set up a call for Wednesday evening, which would be Wednesday afternoon in Tampa. When Jennifer's face appeared on my screen, I was shocked by what I saw. She looked exhausted, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. Her normally neat hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wasn't wearing makeup. "Thank you for talking to me," she said quietly. "I know things are really bad between you and Tyler right now." "I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this," I said honestly. She shook her head. "Barbara, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did your grandmother really leave that condo to you?" "Yes. I have a copy of her will. It's very clear." Jennifer closed her eyes for a long moment. "I was afraid of that." "You didn't know?" "Tyler told me the condo was his to sell. He said it was part of the estate he was managing as executor. But some things he said didn't add up, and when you filed that legal complaint, I started asking more questions. He got really defensive, really angry. That's not like him. Or at least, I didn't think it was like him." She paused, looking away from the camera. "Barbara, we're in trouble. Real trouble. Tyler used most of that money for a down payment on a new house. A much bigger house than we can actually afford. He told me it was fine because he'd invested well and had the money. But if the sale gets reversed and we have to give the money back, we don't have it. It's already tied up in this new property." My stomach sank. "Jennifer, I'm sorry, but I can't just let this go. Grandma wanted me to have that condo. Tyler had no right to sell it." "I know," she said, and tears started rolling down her cheeks. "I know, and I don't blame you. I'm not calling to ask you to drop the complaint. I'm calling because I think Tyler needs to face consequences for what he did. And I think I need to face the reality of who I married." Jennifer's confession opened a floodgate. Over the next hour, she told me things about Tyler that I'd never known, or perhaps had chosen not to see. She described a pattern of small deceptions over the years, each one rationalized away as protecting the family or making smart financial decisions. He'd taken money from his parents without telling her, claiming it was a loan they'd offered when actually he'd asked for it. He'd lied on loan applications, inflating his income. He'd convinced her to put their house solely in his name for tax purposes, that she later realized didn't make sense. "I've been making excuses for him," she said, wiping her eyes. "Telling myself that he's just ambitious, that he's trying to provide for us. But this thing with your grandmother's condo, it's different. It's not a gray area. It's clear-cut fraud, and he did it to his own sister." "What are you going to do?" I asked gently. "I don't know yet. I need to protect my kids. They can't grow up thinking this kind of behavior is acceptable. But Barbara, I want you to know that if your lawyer needs me to testify about anything Tyler said regarding the condo, I'll do it. I'll tell the truth." After we hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I'd been right about Tyler's fraud, but learning the full extent of his deception, seeing how it affected Jennifer and their children, made me feel sick. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about Tyler's entire character, about lies that had been building for years. Douglas called me the next morning with news. Tyler's lawyer wants to negotiate a settlement. They're proposing that Tyler pay you $150,000 to drop the complaint and let the sale stand. "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "That condo is worth more than that, and it's not about the money anyway. It's about what Grandma wanted." I told him you'd say that. "But Barbara, I want you to understand what rejecting this settlement means. It means going to court. It means your entire family will be forced to take sides publicly. Tyler's lawyer is threatening to make this very ugly. They're planning to argue that your grandmother was mentally incompetent when she wrote the will, that you manipulated her." I felt anger surge through me. "That's disgusting. Grandma was completely lucid. We have years of emails proving that." "I know, and we'll present all of that evidence. But they're going to try. They're going to put your relationship with your grandmother under a microscope. They're going to make you defend every conversation, every visit, every gift she ever gave you. It's going to be emotionally brutal. Let them try," I said firmly. "Grandma deserves better than having her final wishes ignored because Tyler wanted a bigger house." "All right," Douglas said. "Then we go to trial. I'll inform Tyler's lawyer that we're rejecting the settlement offer." The hearing was set for Monday. I flew out of Berlin on Thursday, the long flight giving me too much time to think about everything that had happened. I'd left Tampa 3 years ago looking for adventure and independence. Now I was returning to fight for something my grandmother had tried to give me, something my own brother had stolen. My college friend Melanie picked me up from the airport. She'd been following the situation through my sporadic text updates, and she hugged me tight when she saw me. "I can't believe Tyler did this," she said, as we drove toward her apartment. "I mean, I always thought he was kind of pretentious, but actual fraud, that's next level." "I know," I said tiredly. "I keep waiting to wake up and find out this was all a misunderstanding, but it just keeps getting worse." That weekend, Melanie tried to keep me distracted with movies and cooking projects, but my mind kept drifting to the upcoming hearing. Douglas sent me an email Saturday night with our strategy outlined. We'd present the original will, the forged documents Tyler had filed, and testimony from Jennifer about Tyler's statements regarding the sale. We'd also bring in the buyers, Patricia and her husband, to demonstrate how Tyler had deceived multiple parties. Sunday evening, Douglas called with unexpected news. "Barbara, Tyler's lawyer contacted me an hour ago with a new settlement offer. They want to reverse the sale entirely and transfer the condo to you. Tyler will handle all the logistics and costs associated with unwinding the transaction." I was stunned. Why the sudden change? My guess? Jennifer talked to him. She must have made it clear that she wasn't going to support his version of events. Without her backing his story, his entire defense falls apart. His lawyer probably told him he was going to lose badly in court, and this way he avoids a fraud conviction. What about the buyers, Patricia and her family? They'll get their money back and be released from the purchase. Tyler will have to cover any losses they incurred in the process, including moving costs and temporary housing. It's going to cost him significantly, but it's better than a criminal record. I thought about it for a long moment. And if I accept this settlement, What happens to Tyler? Does he face any consequences? Douglas was quiet. Legally, if you accept and sign a non-disclosure agreement, the fraud charges would likely be dropped. He'd walk away with his reputation damaged in the family but no criminal record. Financially, he'd lose whatever he'd already spent from the sale, plus the costs of reversing everything, but he wouldn't face jail time. And if I don't accept? Then we go to court tomorrow. We present all our evidence. Tyler would almost certainly be convicted of fraud. He'd face possible jail time, definitely a criminal record. His career would be destroyed. His marriage might not survive it, but you'd have absolute vindication. I stood at Melanie's window, looking out at the Tampa skyline, thinking about Grandma Eleanor. What would she want me to do? Would she want me to destroy Tyler's life? Or would she want me to take what was rightfully mine and move forward? I thought about Jennifer and their kids, about Patricia and her family, about my parents who were caught in the middle of this mess. But I also thought about Tyler calling me at 2 a.m. to brag about selling the condo, offering me $10,000 like it was a generous gift. I thought about him forging documents and lying to everyone, about him spinning a narrative where I was the villain for daring to want what Grandma had left me. I want to think about it overnight, I told Douglas. Can I give you an answer in the morning? The hearing is at 10. I need to know by 9 at the latest. You'll have my answer by 8, I promised. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying every interaction with Tyler over the past few weeks, every conversation with my family, every email from Grandma Eleanor. I thought about justice and mercy, about revenge and healing, about what it meant to be a family. By 7 a.m, I knew what I had to do. I called Douglas. I'm accepting the settlement, I said, but I have conditions. What conditions? Douglas asked, and I could hear him already taking notes. First, Tyler has to personally apologize to me in writing, acknowledging that he knew the condo was left to me and that he intentionally deceived everyone about it. No vague language about misunderstandings. A clear admission of what he did. Go on. Second, he has to apologize to Patricia and her family and cover all their costs, not just what's legally required, moving expenses, storage fees, any deposits they lose on new housing, everything. They were innocent victims of his fraud, and he needs to make them whole. That's reasonable. What else? Third, I want him to write a letter to Mom and Dad explaining exactly what he did. Not the sanitized version where he's the victim, but the truth. The whole truth. Douglas was quiet for a moment. That last one might be hard to enforce. How do we ensure he actually sends it? You'll draft it based on the facts of the case, and he has to sign it and send it to them with you copied. If he doesn't, the settlement is void and we proceed with the criminal charges. I like it, Douglas said. Anything else? I hesitated, then added, and I want it in writing that he can never contest Grandma's will or any other inheritance matters involving her estate. This ends here, completely. Done. I'll draft the settlement agreement this morning and send it to Tyler's lawyer. Given that the hearing is in 3 hours, they'll have to agree quickly or face court. 2 hours later, Douglas called back. They've agreed to everything. Tyler is signing the paperwork now. Barbara, you won. But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt exhausted and sad. Yes, I was getting the condo back. Yes, Tyler was being forced to admit what he'd done. But my family was fractured. Maybe permanently. The brother I'd grown up with, despite our differences, had turned out to be someone I barely recognized. When do I get the condo? I asked. The paperwork will take about 2 weeks to process. Patricia and her family have 30 days to move out, which Tyler is paying for. After that, the property will be transferred to your name. You can do whatever you want with it. Keep it, sell it, rent it out. It's yours. I met with Douglas in person that afternoon at a cafe near Melanie's apartment. He handed me a folder with all the settlement documents, including Tyler's written apology. I opened it with shaking hands. Dear Barbara, it read, I acknowledge that our grandmother Eleanor's will specifically left her condominium to you as sole beneficiary. I was aware of this provision when I acted as executor of her estate. Despite knowing her wishes, I falsified documents to make it appear that the property had been left to me, and I proceeded to sell it without your knowledge or consent. I deceived you, our parents, the buyers, and all parties involved in the transaction. My actions constituted fraud and violated the trust placed in me as executor. I apologize for the pain and confusion I have caused. I am taking full responsibility for unwinding this transaction and ensuring that Grandma's wishes are honored as they should have been from the beginning. Tyler. It was clinical, legal, and yet reading those words, seeing my brother admit to fraud on paper, made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a family squabble. Tyler had committed a crime against me, and now he had to face it. He also sent the letter to your parents this morning, Douglas said quietly. I have the confirmation. I nodded, unable to speak. I thought about my mom receiving that letter, reading Tyler's admission of what he'd done. Part of me felt vindicated, but part of me just felt sad for what our family had become. What happens now? I asked. Now you wait for the property transfer to be completed. Patricia and her family are already making arrangements to move. Tyler's handling all of that directly. You don't have to do anything except decide what you want to do with the condo once it's yours. I spent the next week in Tampa, avoiding my parents' calls. I wasn't ready to talk to them yet. I met with Patricia and her husband to apologize for the disruption to their lives, and they were remarkably gracious about the whole situation. We're just glad the truth came out, Patricia said. We could have been stuck in a legal nightmare for years. Your brother did wrong, but at least he's making it right now. I visited Grandma Eleanor's condo one afternoon, standing outside and looking up at the balcony where we'd spent so many hours talking. Patricia had invited me to come inside, and I walked through the rooms, seeing how she'd decorated the space. It was different from how Grandma had kept it, but I could still feel her presence there. This was a good home, Patricia said softly. We were happy here, even if it was brief. I hope whoever gets it next will love it as much as we did. I thanked her and left, already knowing what I was going to do with the property. On my last day in Tampa before flying back to Berlin, Jennifer asked to meet me for coffee. We chose a neutral location, a busy Starbucks where neither of us was likely to run into family members. She looked better than she had during our video call, more composed, though I could still see the stress in the lines around her eyes. I wanted to thank you, she said once we'd ordered and sat down, for not pushing for criminal charges. I didn't do it for Tyler, I said honestly. I did it for you and your kids, and for Grandma, because I think she would have wanted peace more than revenge. Jennifer nodded slowly. Tyler and I are separating. I'm taking the kids and moving in with my parents for a while. I need space to figure out if this marriage is salvageable, and honestly, I'm not sure it is. Finding out about the condo was just the final straw in a pattern I'd been ignoring for too long. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. This is Tyler's doing, not yours. You just wanted what was rightfully yours. The fact that Tyler turned it into this massive deception, that's on him. She paused, stirring her coffee absently. He's a mess right now. He had to sell the new house at a loss because we can't afford the mortgage without the condo money. He's humiliated at work because word got around about the fraud allegations. And our parents, well, they're not speaking to him much these days. I winced. How are they doing? Your mom called me crying yesterday. She said she never imagined Tyler would do something like this, that she doesn't know how to face you after taking his side so completely. Your dad is angry, mostly at Tyler, but also at himself for not questioning things more. They haven't called me, I said quietly. They don't know what to say. They're ashamed. They defended Tyler when you were telling the truth, and now they have to live with that. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our drinks. Finally, Jennifer spoke again. "What are you going to do with the condo?" "I'm selling it," I said. "I can't keep it, not with all these memories attached to it now. But I'm going to use the money the way Grandma wanted, to build my life in Germany. I'm thinking about starting my own design studio, maybe taking on international clients. The money will give me security to take that risk." Jennifer smiled faintly. "She'd like that. Eleanor always said you were the brave one, the one who dared to want more than what was expected." "Tyler used to mock me for that." "I know, he was jealous, I think. You had the courage to leave and build something new, while he was stuck in the same patterns, always trying to prove himself through money and status. In some ways, you were everything he wished he could be. I'd never thought about it that way. But maybe Jennifer was right. Maybe Tyler's fraud wasn't just about greed. It was about resentment. Resentment that I'd escaped the family dynamics that had shaped him, that I'd found freedom he couldn't imagine for himself. Before we parted, Jennifer hugged me tightly. "I hope someday we can all be family again. Not the dysfunctional family we were, but something healthier, something honest." "Maybe," I said, "but it's going to take time. A lot of time." I flew back to Berlin the next day, emotionally drained, but also strangely at peace. The condo transfer would be finalized in another week, and then I could move forward with selling it. Douglas had already connected me with a reputable real estate agent in Tampa who specialized in downtown properties. Back at work, I threw myself into projects with renewed energy. Stefan noticed the change in me. "Whatever you were dealing with, it looks like you've resolved it," he said approvingly. "Getting there," I told him. "And actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. I'm thinking about going freelance, starting my own studio. I'd still want to work with this agency on contract, but I need to explore some other opportunities too." Stefan didn't seem surprised. "I was wondering when you'd make this move. You've been ready for a while. Let's talk about how we can make this work for both of us." Over the next month, as the condo sale processed, I laid the groundwork for my new business. I reached out to former colleagues, built a portfolio website, and started networking with other designers in Berlin's creative community. The freedom was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure, but I kept thinking about what Grandma Eleanor had said. Don't let life make you small. The condo sold quickly once it was officially mine. The new buyers were a young couple expecting their first child, and something about that felt right. New life, new beginnings, a fresh start in the space that had meant so much to Grandma Eleanor. When the money hit my account, I sat staring at the number for a long time. $350,000. It was exactly what Grandma had wanted me to have, exactly what she'd planned for. Tyler had tried to steal it, but in the end, justice had prevailed. I transferred a portion to pay off my student loans completely. Another chunk went into a business account for my new studio. The rest I invested carefully, creating a financial cushion that would let me take creative risks without worrying about survival. 3 months after returning to Berlin, I received an unexpected email from my mother. The subject line simply said, "I'm sorry." I opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Barbara, I've started this email 100 times and deleted it just as many. I don't know how to express how sorry I am for not believing you, for taking Tyler's side without question, for making you feel like you were the problem when you were just fighting for what was right. Your father and I have done a lot of soul-searching these past months. We've had to confront some hard truths about our family, about the ways we treated you differently than Tyler, about how we enabled his worst behaviors while dismissing your legitimate concerns. There's no excuse for what we did. You deserved our support and our trust, and we failed you. Tyler's fraud wasn't just a betrayal of you. It was a betrayal of your grandmother's wishes, and that makes it even worse. She wanted to take care of you, to give you security as you built your life abroad, and Tyler tried to take that away. We should have questioned him. We should have asked to see the will ourselves. We should have listened when you told us something was wrong. I understand if you can't forgive us right now. I understand if you need more time, or if you decide you don't want us in your life anymore. We'll have to live with the consequences of our choices. But I want you to know that we love you. We're proud of you. We're in awe of the life you've built for yourself in Germany, the courage it took to move across the world and create something meaningful. Your grandmother saw that in you, and I wish we'd seen it more clearly too. If you're ever ready to talk, we'll be here. With love and regret, Mom. I read the email 3 times, tears streaming down my face. It wasn't everything I wanted to hear, but it was a start. It was acknowledgement, genuine remorse, and the first step toward maybe someday rebuilding something with my parents. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process, to figure out what kind of relationship I wanted with them going forward. But I saved the email, and I didn't delete their contact information. The door wasn't closed forever. My new design studio launched in November, 6 months after the whole condo situation began. I called it Eleanor Creative, a tribute to my grandmother and the gift that had made it possible. My first client was a boutique hotel chain in Austria, followed by a sustainable fashion brand in Copenhagen. The work was challenging and fulfilling in ways my previous job had never been. I hired an assistant, a talented young designer named Petra, who reminded me a bit of myself at her age, hungry to prove herself and full of creative ideas. We worked well together, and slowly my little studio grew. On what would have been Grandma Eleanor's 85th birthday, I took a day off and went to a park near my apartment. I brought a thermos of tea and sat on a bench, thinking about her balcony in Tampa, about all our conversations, about the life she'd lived and the legacy she'd left behind. "Thank you," I whispered to the wind. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for giving me the chance to build something real. I won't waste it." A few weeks before Christmas, I received a package from Florida. Inside was a small box with a note from my mother. "This was your grandmother's. She would want you to have it." I opened the box and found Grandma Eleanor's watch, the delicate silver one she'd worn every day. On the back was an engraving I'd never noticed before. "The world is waiting." I put the watch on immediately, feeling the weight of it on my wrist, the history it carried. It was a reminder of where I'd come from and where I was going. Tyler never contacted me directly. Through Jennifer, who I stayed in occasional touch with, I learned that he'd taken a lower-paying job after losing his position at the insurance company. The fraud allegations, even though charges were never filed, had damaged his reputation in the industry. He and Jennifer were officially divorced, sharing custody of their kids. He'd moved into a modest apartment and was, by all accounts, struggling to rebuild his life. I didn't take pleasure in his downfall, but I didn't feel guilty about it either. Tyler had made his choices, and those choices had consequences. He'd tried to steal from his own sister, to violate his grandmother's final wishes, and he'd gotten caught. The fact that he was facing repercussions wasn't my doing, it was his. My relationship with my parents slowly, tentatively began to heal. We video called occasionally, brief conversations that were awkward at first, but gradually became easier. They'd never fully understand my life in Berlin, but they were trying. That was something. 1 year after Grandma Eleanor's death, I returned to Tampa for a memorial gathering organized by some of her old friends. My parents were there, and we hugged stiffly, but genuinely. Tyler wasn't invited, which everyone understood. After the memorial, my mom pulled me aside. "I wanted you to know that your grandmother left me a letter to give you if anything ever happened with the condo. She must have suspected Tyler might try something. She wrote it 6 months before she died." My mom handed me an envelope, yellowed and sealed. I opened it with shaking hands. "My dearest Barbara," it read in Grandma's familiar handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means something has gone wrong with my estate plans. I wanted you to have the condo because you're the one who understands what freedom means. what it costs to build a life on your own terms. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting it. Don't let family obligation override what you know is right. You've always been stronger than you realize, braver than anyone gives you credit for. Stand up for yourself. Fight for what's yours. And remember that I'm proud of you, every single day. All my love, Grandma Eleanor. I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into my purse, my vision blurred with tears. Even from beyond the grave, Grandma Eleanor had known. She'd known Tyler might try something, and she'd left me this message of encouragement and support. "Thank you for giving this to me," I told my mom. She nodded, her own eyes red. "She was right about you. You're stronger than any of us realized." Tyler's life never fully recovered from the scandal. The legal settlement was public record, and word spread through Tampa's professional circles about what he'd done. His career in insurance was effectively over, and he ended up taking a job in retail management, earning a fraction of what he'd made before. His relationship with his children suffered as they grew old enough to understand what had happened. His daughter, especially, asked pointed questions about integrity and honesty that he struggled to answer. He'd lost his marriage, his career trajectory, and most of his family's respect. The brother who'd always positioned himself as the responsible one, the successful one, had been revealed as a fraud and a thief. That reputation would follow him for the rest of his life. 2 years after everything happened, I stood on a rooftop terrace in Berlin at a launch party for a major project my studio had completed. I was wearing Grandma Eleanor's watch and a dress I'd bought without worrying about the price tag. My business was thriving. My life was full of creative challenges and genuine friendships, and I finally felt like I'd built something that was truly mine. Looking back on the whole ordeal with Tyler and the condo, I realized something important. Grandma Eleanor's real gift wasn't just the property or the money. It was the lesson that I was worth fighting for, that my dreams and my future mattered enough to stand up and defend them, even against family. Tyler had tried to take that from me, but instead, he'd helped me discover a strength I hadn't known I possessed. And that, in the end, was worth more than any inheritance.